Hey everybody, it's Jason Malham with Mastery Life Training, the training you need for the life you want. A little over 20 years ago, maybe even 22, 23 years ago, when my stepfather was still living, he was highly active with the SWAT team for the Metro Nashville Police Department. In fact, he was instrumental in beginning that SWAT team and then leading it for several years. And one time I was talking to him, of course I was a younger kid at that time, and I was talking to him about how he would disarm somebody who was holding a weapon on him. He said, well, it's not as complicated as you might think. He said, in fact, hold that. And I don't remember what was laying there. It was a toy or a magazine or something. He said, hold that and act like it's a weapon. And don't let me get it. So I held it on him, and before I knew it, he had grabbed it or knocked it out of my hand. And I said, well, you're faster than I am. He said, nope, that's not it. He said, some of your own buddies could have taken that from you just like I did. And I said, well, how? He said, by a very simple principle, action is quicker than reaction. Now think about that. Action is quicker than reaction. That's just a simple truth. And when I think about it today, it applies to so many areas of your life and my life. Let me suggest 4 applications of that simple truth where action is always going to be more effective than reaction every single time. The first one is with your goals. When I'm working with my clients, I tell them after we've worked with their goals and understood, and they've come to understand what their goals are and what the driving force of their life is, what they really want to accomplish. We've gotten it all down on paper. I then tell them that until they work their goals into their daily task management system, and if they don't have one, I show them how to create one, their goals are worthless. Their goals are worthless until they figure out how to act on them. Because here's what most people do when they go to work and they spend their day working, is they're just reacting all day long. They're reacting to whatever the need is. As Stephen Covey wrote about it years ago in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, they're dealing with whatever is urgent and rarely ever dealing with what is truly important. The urgent things are the things that are coming at you at any given moment. Someone that's sticking their head in your office asking for something or requesting something to be done quickly. You get a phone call from a client wanting something right now. You get an email, whatever it is. These are urgent things. If you don't have a task system for the day that is deliberate, you created it with your goals in mind, your goals will never be achieved. You'll always be reacting instead of acting. Action, though, is better than reaction. Create a task list for the day. You should do this every single evening. You should plan out a couple weeks as much as you can, but then every evening get more detailed about the day to come. And make sure that you have 1 or 2 or 3 tasks that are specifically going to drive you toward your chief goals in life, professionally and personally. And once you've created that task list and you've prioritized it, you stick to it no matter what. You get an interruption during the day, you get a phone call or a request from somebody. You say, I'm going to deal with that as soon as I can. You put it on your task list where it belongs and immediately get back to what you were doing. Until you get active, until you start living your life by action instead of reaction, you won't be able to achieve your goals. So that's one way in which action is most certainly quicker than reaction. Now another area, a second area, is in the area of handling objections. Action is better than reaction. Most people in their sales scripts or their sales pitch, and this applies even to phone work. I've done a video lesson on the 3 questions you have to answer in the first 10 seconds of a phone call, whether you're talking about a cold call or whether you're talking about a referral call or even a call to your client. The same truth applies there as well. But most people deal with objections that people have in a reactionary way. I remember that when I was first starting to do presentations about my workshops, I'd go into an office or a company and I would give them a 45-minute teaser or a 45-minute example of the training straight from the workshop. And oftentimes they might ask about the distance. And it might only be, if I was doing it here in the Nashville area, Well, the workshops are always held somewhere near Nashville, so they might only have to drive 50 minutes, maybe an hour sometimes. And there would be people say, well, I don't know if I want to spend several $100s on a workshop that I've got to drive an hour to, and yada, yada, yada. Well, I finally learned how to just simply handle that by action instead of reaction. It's much more difficult to answer an objection when you're having to react to it, because even if you have the right answer, now you can be perceived as just a slick salesperson that has an answer for everything. So I started working it into my presentation, where I would just make a couple references to how, oh, you're going to love this workshop. There are going to be a lot of people there that you're going to really feed off of their energy. There'll be people there from all over the state of Tennessee and several other states throughout the southeastern U.S. And that was absolutely true. And I would work that comment and a couple more like it into my presentation at some point or another. And from that time on, I rarely ever got an objection about the distance to the workshop. And if I did, I would simply be able to say, that's a great question. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, you're going to see people there from all over the state. And I would just repeat what I'd already said. And now it wasn't me giving them a slick response. It was almost like they felt guilty for even bringing it up. I'm telling you, handling objections can only really be done effectively, or at least most effectively, in advance. So what is your sales script? What are your most common objections? Sit down and take some time to write down the most common objections that you get and that you hear. And then take that to your sales script and make sure that you're already answering it in your presentation. It's much easier to act on objections ahead of time, in advance, than to have to react to an objection. Now, a third area where action is most definitely better than reaction is in handling conflicts. And by conflicts, I mean any conflict at work or at home. Let me give an example from home, and then you'll see the application. Conflicts in our relationships, our personal relationships, are easier to avoid than to resolve. I think we can all appreciate that, and we can all relate to that. Just take a common everyday example. You take a family like mine. We're a family of 6. We've got my wife, Mickey, and then our 4 children. You can see us all together on the blog page, the main blog page. If we're on our way, if we're trying to get ready to go somewhere at the house, and it involves any kind of preparation, packing or something like that, maybe we're going to have a picnic, or we're going to go camping, and so we're getting lunches together and all this kind of thing. It doesn't take very much for anxiety to set in and people get too tense, and pretty soon you can have some serious conflicts. But I have found that all that needs to happen to preempt that is for my wife Mickey and I to start with the good attitude, to stay calm ourselves, to have some levity as we're all getting ready to go, to crack some jokes, to talk about how much time we have. We've got all kinds of time. We're running ahead of time. And if we do that, then there is never any conflict issue. There's never any attitude issue whatsoever. Once you let the attitudes and the conflicts flare or flame up, then you're going to have some issues dealing with it. Now, attitude always reflects leadership. It always trickles down from above. So apply this to your work situation as well. If you have a team of people that you lead, or even if you're just part of the team, and you see that starts to be stress or any kind of animosity that's building in your team, no matter what the cause is, understand that before it becomes bad, before it ends up being conflict, you can short-circuit it yourself. Action is better than reaction. You go ahead and start diffusing it with your attitude, and it will trickle down from the top, or it'll trickle down from you, and it will diffuse it, and you will have preempted it before it ever happens. Action is quicker than reaction. Number 4, the area of health and fitness. Now just think about this. I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with that one of their personal goals was weight loss. Well, let me tell you something. It's easier to not gain 30 pounds than to lose 30 pounds. Do I hear a bunch of amen? It's true, isn't it? It's much easier to prevent weight gain than to engage in weight loss. It's much easier to prevent high blood pressure issues than to get rid of them. Unless you want to use medication, which I hope that you don't. It's much easier to prevent diabetes than to live as a diabetic. The point is, create and craft and rigorously protect a healthy lifestyle right now. Eat the right kinds of foods now. Get in the habit and create those habits and live by those habits now. Have an exercise regimen, even if it's a mild one, right now and stick to it. It's so much easier to prevent bad health or to maintain good health than to have to correct bad health. Let me give you one tip along this line. I know I've mentioned it in the article, the blog post about brain health, and you can go check this out in more detail there. But a lot of recent studies have shown that if you will simply walk for 2 miles a day, 2 miles, you will not only prevent a lot of potential diseases and health problems, keeping your brain healthy, keeping your heart healthy, but you'll just feel much better right now. And that walking does not have to be power walking. It doesn't have to end up with you being a sweaty mess. It doesn't have to be fast where you can't even talk. Many people have misunderstood the idea of aerobic exercise. And when they picture aerobic exercise, they picture somebody in drenched clothing who can't hardly breathe when they're through. But aerobic exercise is just enough exercise to get your heart pumping and get air or oxygen flowing through your bloodstream. That's the idea of aerobic. It means with air or with oxygen. So you can do simple things like simply parking farther away from a building, either the one where you work or one that you're visiting. It can be simple things like during lunch, walking up up and down several flights of stairs. It could be just taking a break and walking around a track somewhere. It doesn't have to require a gym membership. It's very simple to get 2 miles in. In fact, I highly recommend you getting a pedometer or a pedometer app for your smartphone and just track it for a few days. You've heard me say over and over in my articles and maybe in some of these video lessons that whatever is accurately measured dramatically improves. So measure the walking you get done in a typical day. Park a little farther from your office building and walk. Park a little farther when you're grocery shopping and walk. Walk some stairs during lunch and just clock it each time on your pedometer. Finish a day and see how much you're actually getting in. You might be surprised with some simple changes. You might already be able to get in 2 miles a day without changing your routine at all. And you'll be able to maintain a healthier lifestyle, and that is so much easier than having to correct a bad one, because action is quicker than reaction. Well, there you are, 4 applications that'll get you started on this principle. Apply this principle in your life all around, and you will be a happy, proactive person. This is Jason Malham with Mastery Life Training, the training you need for the life you want. I'll see you soon.